Becky?
And as it settles out, of course, the bell gone now down about 1%. Felicia, thank you for that. Well, wealthy Americans won't be the only ones facing the possibility of higher taxes in the years to come. Spain reintroduced a wealth tax on Friday that had been suspended for the past 3 years. Now, officials say it will bring in more than $1 billion a year. Similar story in France, where people making more than $700,000 will have to pay an extra 3% of their total income in taxes. But the UK bucking the trend. Have a look at this. Here, people in the top tax bracket pay half of their income, above $235,000 in taxes. Many high-profile economists are urging the government to reduce that 50% rate, saying it's doing lasting damage to the British economy. So, do higher taxes on millionaires help an ailing economy or stifle growth? Well, my next two guests have very different answers to that question. Roger Hickey says taxing the rich is the right thing to do. He's co-director of the Campaign for America's Future and joins me from Washington this evening. But Tai Young says it's a bad idea. He's a wealth management advisor and he is at CNN Center. Tai, you can't honestly say that increasing the tax on people who earn more will actually cost the Treasury more than it will raise. Can you?
There's actually no question about that. The top 1% of all income earners pay more than 40% of all income taxes. And if you increase the taxes on the top income earners, those are the job creators. And if you stifle their ability to create jobs, they won't create jobs. And the way you get out of a deficit situation like this is you need more taxpayers, not more taxes. And the way you get more taxpayers is you create jobs. The president's own debt commission gave him advice that he's not following, and he continues with the class warfare. And really, that's not good for our economy. That's not really good for the United States of America.
Roger, I know you don't agree with him. Why?
Well, I don't agree because our deficit problem in the U.S. is primarily a function of this very bad recession that we've been in and the tax cuts for the wealthy that the Bush administration gave to very wealthy people. The real problem that we have is the recession. And it's important to stress that a week ago, the president gave a speech in which he outlined a series of proposals to get us growing again and creating jobs. I would not advocate taxing anybody more until we get an economic recovery. And then it's only fair that somebody like Warren Buffett pay at least as much as his secretary, who famously pays more these days in terms of taxes.
In terms of the rate. Okay, Tai, the Clinton years bear witness to the fact that higher taxes did actually reap higher revenues. Be that as it may, isn't there a moral imperative to have the rich bear more of a burden, particularly at a time like this?
Let me reiterate, the top 1% of all income earners pay more than 40% of all taxes. They are paying an inordinate amount, a disproportionate amount of taxes as we speak. And that we already had the stimulus package, $1 trillion in spending. And what do we have to show for it? Higher unemployment. The president, with his job speech, talked about spending another $500 billion. The policy has already been tried and it didn't work. Again, what we need to do as a country to stimulate jobs and therefore grow the economy is to cut taxes and have a flatter tax rate, and especially on corporations. Lowering the tax rate to a tax rate of 0 for corporations would dramatically grow the economy. We don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem.
Okay, I get your corporate tax rate argument. That's not what we're talking about, though, specifically tonight. Guys, have a listen to this. Warren Buffett became the face of the so-called Tax Me More movement with a widely read op-ed in the New York Times last month. You may have read it, called Stop Coddling the Super Rich. In that piece, Buffett called for an immediate tax increase on the wealthiest Americans. But guys, he is not alone. 15 French billionaires have signed a letter to their government requesting permission to make a special contribution to help the economy recover. And a wealthy group of Germans have also gotten in on the act, offering to pay a 5% wealth tax for the next 2 years to help pull the country out of recession. We're talking about a millionaires tax here. Is there an optimal rate then, Roger, for example, for taxing the rich at this point?
Well, it depends on people's income. We should have a graduated income tax, but certainly it needs to be something higher than 15%, which is what Americans pay now for capital gains. It's very important that the people who can bear the burden share the burden. And so far, that group has seen nothing but tax cuts for the last several decades. It's important, however, that we not do that until we get the economy growing. That's the problem that is facing both Europe and the United States, is getting growth going, getting jobs going, and another round of tax cuts is not the way to do that.
Ty, the late American billionaire Leona Helmsley once famously said, only the little people pay taxes. Is that true? Is that what you want in America today?
No, as I said, I pointed out 1%, again, of the top income earners in the United States pay 40% of the taxes. And if Warren Buffett wants to write a check to the Treasury, certainly he can do that. But for the rest of us, as my colleague just said there, that we shouldn't raise taxes right now. If you want the economy to grow, you want to have an environment that the job creators are willing to create jobs in. And the way that you do that is you get rid of regulation and you get rid of taxes. Flattening the income tax is the answer, not raising it to the people, the very people who we depend on to create jobs.
Brief last word, Roger.
I hate to say that, but this is the stalemate that the U.S. is in, and we're going to be in this stalemate until the next election, sad to say. So we'll have this debate for another 14 months or so.
Roger, Ty, we thank you very much indeed for joining us here on Connect the World this evening.